So the other day I'm sitting at my computer and I get two texts almost at the exact same time from two different friends. The first text is from a friend. It's a link to the New York Times announcing that Kamala Harris is Joe Biden's vice presidential pick. The second link is from a friend linking to Fox News saying that Kamala Harris is the vice presidential pick for Joe Biden. And I clicked open both of these links and I was amazed to see how different they looked. And so in this video, I want to examine how candidates are portrayed to us by news outlets and how that can affect our perceptions of their strength, of their competence, of their warmth. And so I'm going to analyze these side by side so that we can see that all different kinds of positioning and messages are being sent simply through the body language in these images. Now, what's important to consider for these images is this was a lot of people's first impression of Kamala Harris. Most people had not seen her before, maybe not even heard her before. And so this link that popped open, whether they were reading the New York Times or Fox News, and we're also going to look a little bit at CNN too, that first link of that big announcement was probably a lot of Americans' first impression of her. And so this is really important. Research shows that first impressions are long lasting. I give them a nickname called PAIN: permanent, accurate, immediate, and nonverbal. They tend to last with us. And so that first impression, that first picture is incredibly important for forming someone's impression, even as they hear the debates, even as they read her history, even as they hear her positioning. So let's take a look. I want to first look at the New York Times picture. All right, so take a look here at the New York Times picture. First, you can see they have a brief headline, a little subheading, and then a huge picture of her. Now, this is very interesting psychologically speaking from a body language perspective. The first thing you'll notice is the angle. We are looking up at Kamala Harris. Now, this is, I think, purposeful, and the reason for this is because when we were little children and we looked up at people, we looked up at our parents, our role models, people who took care of us. And so still, even when we're adults, when we're looking up at someone, they seem like they know everything. And so when we look up at people, we have that upward angle, it makes them look strong and charismatic and confident. It makes them look tall and like they're taking up more space. So that angle right off the bat, I knew, they're trying to position a very confident look, right? So you're looking up at her. What's the next thing you notice? Maybe her hand gesture. So when we look at someone, one of the very first places we look is someone's hands. I talked a lot about this in my TED Talk. We're very aware of someone's hands because they show intention, and the brain gives a lot of weight to hand gestures. So for example, if I were to say to you today, I have 5 big ideas, your brain is more likely to believe 3 as opposed to 5. And that's because we give more weight to our hand gestures. Our hand gestures show, is something big and important? Is it something big and important? Is it something big and important? Right? We're always looking to hands to emphasize something. This hand gesture was a very interesting choice for the editors of the New York Times. So it's the hand on the heart. The hand on the heart is the universal signal. It doesn't matter what language you speak, it doesn't matter what gender you are. This is the universal signal for coming from the heart. It's an extremely warm gesture. A lot of the times, by the way, you'll see candidates who are doing this, the fist, who are doing this, the pinch, who are doing this, the thumbs up, or even this, the point. You very rarely see this gesture. So you know just by the positioning here that they are trying to position warmth and competence. The upward look is highly competent, highly confident. The heart gesture is highly warm. You also see her hands are visible. They're in the shot. Then you also, if you go up to the face, so right after we look at kind of the angle and the hands, we usually then bump up to someone's face. So what's her face doing here? 2 very important things. Actually, I'm going to say 3 very important things. Do you see them? So the first one is she's looking up too. So you're looking up at her and she's looking up. That is the ultimate nonverbal gesture of hope, right? If we see me looking up, don't I look more positive, more hopeful? Versus I'm going to look down. Don't I look more scornful, more haughty, more superior, more pessimistic, more sad? It's amazing how just that gaze cue. And by the way, that also makes us want to look up, which also makes us feel more open and hopeful. You can also see because she's looking up, she's exposing the most vulnerable part of her body. So whenever we expose our torso or our neck, like the head tilt, it shows that we're confident enough to expose our most vulnerable area. You'll notice that when people are really anxious, they tend to tuck their chin in. Maybe they'll cross their arms over their chest because they're trying to protect this vulnerable area. So the fact that she's looking up and has a slight head tilt also shows, I'm warm, I'm open, but I'm also super confident that I'm willing to expose this area. Again, this is totally subconscious, but this is the immediate kind of gut instinct that we'll get from these body language cues. The other thing that I see here, see if you notice it, is she is smiling with both her mouth and her eyes. And this is really important. So a fake smile is when the smile is just on the bottom half of the face. Looks like this. All right, so it doesn't reach my actual eyes. She's smiling with a slight smile, no teeth here, but you can see that it reaches all the way up into the crinkles of her eyes. So I'm gonna do a smile without genuine, so doesn't reach my eyes, versus this is a genuine. Right, it reaches all the way up into these eyes. So here you have this image that is the perfect blend of warmth and competence. You have upward look, you have also a broad stance. I forgot to mention she has space between her arm and her torso. So when we're looking for confidence, we're looking to see how much space someone's taking up. So space taking up is an angled head, right? So we take up more space. Also broad arms, so that we see space between the torso and the arms, and shoulders down and back. So here the fact that you can see space between her arms and her torso, like if I were to be like this, like a penguin, right? So if I go like this, like a penguin, that shows anxiety. But the moment I rest my shoulders and I have space here, it makes me look much more broad and confident. But the warmth comes from that warmth gesture and that smile. Let's look at the other side. So this is the very first impression you get if you opened up the New York Times, which I think most people can agree is more of a liberal-leaning media outlet. Let's go to the other side. So Fox News is, I think most people can agree, more of a conservative-leaning outlet. What is their first impression that they wanted to give you? Okay, so this is right when you hit the Fox homepage, you see this. So this is really interesting because they have Kamala Harris on here, but she's much smaller. They have their candidate as much bigger. So that's actually more of your first impression, is even though this was Biden's news, that Biden chose Harris as a running mate, they actually have Trump as the featured picture here. So that means where they want you to focus is their candidate, which totally makes sense. And Kamala Harris, look at the picture they chose of her here. So this one is more straight on. So you're looking right at her. You're on the same level as her. It doesn't make her look higher than, more important than, or they also didn't choose the downward look, which can also be very like you're better than. This is right on. And you can see that here she looks, can you guess the microexpression? A little surprised and a little afraid, right? So whenever we see the lines across the forehead here and the eyebrows raised and a little bit of the whites of the eyes, especially the whites of the eyes above the a dark part of your eye, that's when we see fear or surprise. We don't like candidates who are afraid or surprised, but they show that picture because it's the opposite of confidence, and warmth, right? If you have someone who's like this, they're literally like a deer in the headlights. That's how it looks. And so that very first impression, that snap judgment you get of her when you look at her picture is a little bit afraid, a little bit deer in the headlights, which of course we don't want from a leader. The other thing that she's doing here is she has a open mouth, which is also part of surprise. It also makes someone look like they're unprepared, right? If you are talking to someone and they're like mouth open, like what is that? My mom used to call it fish mouth. It makes them look a little dumb, makes them look a little silly, makes them look like they have nothing to say. And so she's literally caught in this not know what to say gesture in the middle of whatever she was saying. The last thing I want you to notice here, actually there's a couple more things, is one, you see no hands. So hands, I told you there are trust indicators, there are intention, and so when we can't see someone's hands, we do not like it. Do you notice how in this picture, you see Trump's hand, even just off camera, but you still see it, but you don't see Biden's or Kamala Harris? I think that is absolutely purposeful. It's because when the brain can't see hands, we just don't trust them very much. We feel like, we can't see their intention. The other thing that she's doing here is she's protecting this most vital part of her body, right? So the last picture, she was showing her most vital part of her body, her most vulnerable part of her body. Here she's covering it. And that chin tuck is an anxiety gesture. By the way, if I go like this, it's very hard for me to speak with any kind of vocal power because it shuts down my vocal power. So we also know that it signals anxiety because it shuts things down. It's a protective gesture. It's also a very weak gesture. And the reason for this is because it's a distancing behavior. So when we don't like something, we try to back away from it. Right? If we smell something bad or we hear something bad, we go, ugh, no. Oh, no. We turn our body away. We turn our head away. And here she's pulling her head back, as if she's smelled something bad, as if she's trying to get away from it. We also do not like skittish leaders. So in this one small picture, we're seeing a very different kind of first impression. Now, what's interesting about this is I'm not trying to make a judgment here on right or wrong. I'm also not trying to convince you about anything about what you should think about Kamala Harris. All I want you to see here is how a first impression, or just one picture, can give off so many different micro messages, so many different nonverbal cues. And so what I want you to be aware of in the coming months is thinking about what nonverbal messages are being sent to you, and making sure that you are doing a little bit of research, making sure that you're looking into what messages you want to feel about the person you're looking at. And that framing and positioning, especially on first impressions, especially on images, is incredibly important for our subconscious feelings about a person. So think about this for the candidates that are being shown to you, but also think about this for your own pictures, your LinkedIn profile picture, your Instagram profile picture. What nonverbal cues are you sending out to people about your picture? A lot of first impressions are happening digitally these days. So make sure that your pictures represent the kind of person who you actually are. And then I think we're all going to be in a better place.